Hey everyone, I'm Rabbi Tzvi Waxman.
And I'm Rabbi Shalom Rodin.
We're here at the Hanging at the Hub podcast, which we created to be a place where it's real talk, people and rabbis, where we discuss all kinds of everyday topics and find the Jewish perspective on it.
Everyone has a story, whether you're famous or not, and we try to bring that out to everyone.
So with all our interviewees, hopefully you can learn something. We can learn something, and should be fun.
All the best.
All right, everyone listening on audio and those who are watching, welcome to another episode of Hanging at the Hub podcast, where we discuss real topics. We have real people, real rabbis. We like to keep it real, relaxed, but we talk about things and the perspective of the Torah, the Bible, and just some Jewish stuff. We have like to have a good fun time with it as well. I'm here with my colleague, Rabbi Shalom Rodin. Some people call him my work wife.
Seriously, with him more than my wife.
Shh, you shouldn't tell me.
I hope Connie's not watching.
Right.
I hope she is watching.
You don't want to do that.
Either way, I'm out. Okay, next.
Yes, and we come to the hub, we come here only to work really hard, never to leave the house because it's crazy at home.
Yes,
absolutely.
Shout out all the mothers and wives out there. Unbelievable what y'all are doing.
I'm Rabbi Tzvi Waxman, and we're joined here with a special guest. Jordana Kohn, a good friend of ours, and her husband Justin, also a very good friend of ours. Jordana is the chef and owner of the Market Local Comfort Cafe.
One of the owners, yeah.
One of the owners. Yes, I said it right though, right?
Yeah, you're fine.
Got it. Okay, we're gonna.
So far, so good.
We'll dive into that a little bit.
30 seconds in.
Absolutely. So you're saying, so Jordana, I mean, for us and like in our community, like she's famous, but globally, not yet. We're going to get there.
One day.
Right. But the idea, so the question is, so why are we interviewing, someone from Dallas, so a friend of ours who's, she's known locally, is because we realized with one of the segments of this podcast in particular was to realize that every single person has their own personal journey. And no matter what it is, the ethics of the fathers, Pirkei Avot, it says that who is a wise person? Someone who learns from everyone. Mm-hmm. And especially in the day and age now with, I'm still doing, we just doing Facebook, like we're really far behind. Facebook, Instagram, social media, Pinterest, Pinstagram,
TikTok,
Pinstagram. We may start a new thing right now.
I think you need to find a different name.
Yeah. Start with the basics, okay?
Oh my goodness.
You guys should make a TikTok.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I've heard about that, but I don't know about that.
I think it would work.
Okay.
You guys would do it.
Something to think about. So that's what it is. We want to be able to. No. So saying is with social media, what you have is you're seeing everyone at their best. Best vacation. The children are the best. Work. Everything is top of the line. And sometimes it's very hard to see past that everyone has challenges. Everyone has ups and downs. And I think that when people see that, and maybe sometimes we could provide a Jewish perspective on it, maybe with that, and also very chill. We make jokes and everything like that. So that's why we have Jordana here today. And they say, what do we have to say? That if you like this episode, subscribe.
Subscribe to your channel.
Do you like it? Do you share it? What do you
subscribe? Reviews.
Where are you going to be putting this?
Yeah, find on your local podcast nearest you,
Spotify,
wherever you get it.
Podbean, I think. No, not Podbean.
Podbean, oh, yeah, Coffee Bean.
Something Bean, okay, but Bean. Spotify, Apple, all that, it will be out there. And give your reviews, check us out, subscribe.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so let's dive right in. Shalom, you want to?
Okay, so where are you from? I know you're not from here, and obviously autism, no, you're not from here.
Not from Dallas. I'm originally from Hollywood, Florida, but then I was kind of like raised by like Brooklyn and Queens family members, so it's kind of like from New York also. And then I went to high school in Maryland. And then after Maryland, I went to Israel. And then after Israel, we went back to New York. So I'm kind of from, I say I'm from the East Coast because you got a little bit of all of that there, but not from Dallas.
Well, when you meet your dad, when he has, I don't know what kind of hat, the big Texas hat with the Brooklyn accent.
Well, no, he's old school Brooklyn, but he wishes he was from Texas.
Why'd you move to Dallas?
So really I met my husband in Israel. My second year, what do they call it? When you go to seminary, but the other word that they use.
You went for post-high school.
Yeah,
just
post-high school
Jewish studies. And
So we met in Israel at Burger's Bar. And then we went back to New York. My husband went to YU. I went to Queens College. And then we got married. And then we were like, where are we going to settle down? We knew we didn't want to go to New York because it was super expensive and it just wasn't our speed. And then my husband's best friend, then and still now, Ellie Tabaria, is from Dallas. Sure. And they moved here along with our other good friends, the Edelmans. And they were like, come. And we were like, okay. So we just moved. And I never was here before. And I was super annoyed that I ended up in like Dallas because I thought we were going to be in like a Fort Worth situation. I thought I was going to be like boots and hats and like horses, but we're in the city, which is fine. But like I was like, funny. Where is the Cowboys? Literally. But yeah, and then that's how we came to Dallas. And I know your family from Florida, sure. Of course. So when we mentioned Dallas,
so basically you moved because of us.
Well, your uncle.
In a nutshell.
Okay.
But yeah, I didn't know you. We moved the same Shabbat.
Yes.
And that's a hilarious story because we were all in shul and all of the women, nobody was talking to each other because and I'm not shy. So I said to my husband, this is ridiculous. Like nobody's going to introduce themselves to me because I'm new and I'm used to what are there other areas that are like that? I was like, I'm just going to introduce myself. So I went up to your wife and to your wife and Toby Grossman. I was like, hi, I'm new. And they were like, oh my God, so are we. And we all moved that same weekend.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And we were all nobody thought everybody thought it was such a rude neighborhood because nobody was speaking to each other, but everybody was new.
Everyone's like, why are you coming over to me? I'm the new one.
Yeah. I was like, and then I made it a thing now at shul. I go over to the new people and I'm like, hi, are you new? So it's nice.
Cool. I'm still stuck on the fact that you met Justin at Burger's Bar.
Burger's Bar.
I'm trying to think the first scene watching, I can imagine Justin eating a burger.
Yeah.
Watching him eat a burger. So that must have been.
I can eat a burger.
Right away, you're like, I gotta get to know this guy.
I don't remember how it happened, but yeah, we met at Burger's Bar and I was known in his phone as Burger's Bar Girl for 5 years. And at our wedding, we had the Burger's Bar shirts, and that's how I was friends.
So everything sentimental in your life revolves around food.
Food, always.
Okay, food.
It's true.
Oh, so
you're truly Jewish.
Good segue, Shalom.
Okay,
Rabbi really Shalom, great segue. Okay, so how about so I remember when we were here and you decided that you were going to go. Well, you were working. What was your first job when you were working here?
So I've always worked in restaurants, and it's always been in our family. In Israel, I was working in a bunch of restaurants. Also in the shuk, I was working. I love it. I'm obsessed with food. So when I moved here, I started working at Benny's Bagels while I was going to school. So I went to Le Cordon Bleu in Dallas, and I got my bachelor's there in hospitality and culinary. And then, I was there the whole time. I kept kosher the whole time, so that was super hard, but I did that. And then afterwards, I started to work with the Taste of the World, and I became their executive chef. And then I just knew that I wanted to open a restaurant, but I knew I shouldn't open a restaurant because it's super hard and complicated. And then in Dallas, it was just it needed to happen here. So then, we decided to.
Well, backtrack on one thing you just mentioned. You said that you were keeping kosher while you were.
Yeah,
that must have been tough because you're probably tasting things.
Yeah, you had to taste the whole thing. Yeah, I couldn't taste anything. I kind of made it a point. I went to the Cordon Bleu, which is one of the best French culinary schools in the country, in Dallas, and I didn't taste one thing. Okay. I would come home and cook some things. I did graduate as valedictorian, so that was a pretty big deal because I didn't taste anything because it was once you can't taste, you can't be distracted by your own opinion of what you think the food should be. You're just strictly on technique alone, which is kind of the way I cook. And when I teach cooking, that's what we do. We teach on technique. And I think if you can learn cooking as a technique, you don't ever need a recipe. You'll learn the concepts and then you can cook. And that's how I always teach cooking.
So you used it as a value. You took it to your advantage.
I mean, it was super annoying sometimes.
It turned it into
that
really.
But it was you learn, okay, this much meat, this many ounces, should use this much salt, this much this. I mean, it was really hard, but it was once you made the decision to do it, you did it. There was one day that there was 1 month that was dedicated to chocolate and all the chocolate was kosher. So like all my classmates knew, like, no, Jordana's the only one eating. And I got to take it home, like all these crazy expensive chocolates from France and from Italy. And they were all kosher. And I was like, they're mine. Back off. It was awesome. It's a great day.
That's the only thing of it you just said I could relate to. I eat chocolate.
It was great.
Cooking, forget
I don't
it.
even
But
eat
that
chocolate
part,
that
the eating,
much. I was like, oh my God, it's a kosher. Give it to me. But like my teachers were really nice. Like, I don't know if this is like too much, but like we had to like break down animals. So like you break down a pig and then like my teacher's like, well, we got you a cow. And I was like, no joke. I was like, well, I want a pig because I want to do the class, but I'll also do the cow. So we like broke down both. I don't know if I was allowed to do that,
cool.
but it was a fun experience. I learned a lot.
That's like one of the questions that really would like hit me, that, you know, talking to a restaurant owner, obviously there's a plethora of challenges,
Oh my God.
but with Corona, it must be, just talk to us about that. Like how are you dealing with these,
So when
the challenges?
when I decided to open the market, thank God I have a lot of mentors around the country. They own restaurants in LA, New York, Miami, kosher and non-kosher. And I literally just harassed all of them as much as I could, building our business model, every single thing from our layout to everything. And they helped us so much. And then when COVID hit, I literally called them and I was like, okay, fine. So what do we do? And they were like, no, this has never happened before. I was like, no. Like, what do you do in this situation? They're like, this has never happened in the history of, forget our country, like ever, that the government, whether good or bad, has literally shut down, for me, 98% of my business, because they shut dine-in down in Dallas. But dine-in is not the major thing. They shut dine-in down. We were just starting to pick up for catering and for renting out the restaurants. And like, it was a domino effect. It's not only did people stop eating out, people just stopped going out, taking out. People started holding on, which was okay, but people started freezing their money because they didn't know what was going on. And like literally the first thing to go when you go on a budget is, oh, we don't have to go out to eat that much. Right. It's the first thing to go, like movies and going out to restaurants. And it was just crazy because every day it was hitting a different way. It hit New York first, obviously. So we were just all watching, and it hit like the Jewish community. So we were just talking to our friends, being like, what's going on? And we kept on being like, is it going to hit Dallas? Dallas is super right. So I didn't know which way it would land. And they went to a full shutdown right away. And I remember we had to let go 99% of our staff like that day. There was no question about it because okay, if you know your restaurant, you know where your numbers are. So if you know, okay, the only thing I can do is take out, I'm literally only going to be making 5% of what I'm supposed to be making. So you just start cutting as much as you can. Okay, we're going to take this off the menu because we don't want to buy that. We're going to cut this person, this. And we went to a full like survival mode. What can we do to just stay afloat? Because we thought at the time that this would last maybe a month. Right. We were like, let's get through the month. It also happens to be summer, which is normally slower anyways. So, okay, fine. And then it just kept going. And it was like, what do we do to survive?
So something I noticed about the market and other restaurants here is that you've pivoted incredibly. Like always trying to do different things, being creative and doing, and it's all industries. I know with the outreach industry, we're definitely trying to find different ways.
We jumped on social media. We posted a new dish every day. We still do a new special every day. Totally. I like weird food. So it was like things that people have never even heard of. Sometimes it was good. Sometimes it was bad. Sometimes I went a little bit too out of the box and people were like, what does this mean? I'm like, it's fine. It's delicious. Just buy it. And they're like, okay.
Amazing. So you're 3 years in now, right? How long's the restaurant? 2 years?
We are a year in.
A year in? Oh my God. It literally seems like.
We have been opened. We opened last Mother's Day. We were hit
it's amazing.
with 2 tornadoes and COVID. And we've been actively serving for 7.5 months, 8 months now, but we've only been opening
so
here.
Funny. I will bump into random people and they'll be like, yeah, the market. Of course I heard the market. To me, it seems like.
No.
So I'm wondering, is it with something you've tasted success, you've tasted challenge, if you would do it all over again, would you?
Yeah. Yeah, we would do it all over again. We want to do it again. We want to open something else. Not now, but eventually. But yeah, I always knew I wanted to do the restaurant.
Awesome.
And my husband was supportive, and he knew that, like, it's cute that you guys are like, you're here the whole time. Yeah, I'm at the restaurant the whole time.
Right.
Like, I've slept there in the sense of, like, not on purpose, but we have benches, and I've, like,
You always have
lied
something
down.
to eat. Whatever.
Yeah, you're fine. I said it. You got Wi-Fi.
You never have to run out for lunch. You're like,
Yeah, you got lunch.
It's ironically, I don't eat anything.
I just could imagine just the ups and downs. You're excited you started. Oh man, but now we have different business opportunities.
No, it was
and
crazy.
The emotions are.
It was out
all
of
over the place.
control. It was out of control, and I wasn't always in control, but it was something that, like, it was crazy because every single day, they would announce another rule. Okay, so now you can open, but you can only open to 25%. Okay, 25% for me is 11 people. But if you open to 11 people, the people who don't feel comfortable with other people there will stop coming to get takeout food because it was something that was like, it was nuts. It's still nuts.
I think just from a rabbinical perspective as well, is that we know is that God doesn't do anything by accident.
Yeah.
So every single thing that happens, whether good, bad, we don't understand it necessarily, but it's
Yeah.
always for our best. And sometimes it's not easy always to talk about, like, to internalize that and be able to say, okay, therefore this is the best thing for me. But I think it's always like the goal. Somehow we view it, okay, God runs the world and he thinks this is the best thing. Let me try to run with this, but it's not, but it's hard. Try to do that when you're home with all your quarantine, with all your kids at home and they're driving you crazy. That's not easy,
See, I didn't have to do that because I was at work every day.
So you were really worked out well for you.
I mean, I don't know if anybody would want to trade, but like I would come home and Justin would be like, "Oh my God, you don't know my day," and I would look at him like, "Your day,
You're right.
your day." I was just told by the governor that if somebody comes in without a mask, I'm fined $500 for each person.
Right.
And he's like, "Oh," I was like, "No, but your day was just as hard." Like it's true because it is. It was everybody was going through something.
Why do we do that?
Hey everyone, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, the high holidays are coming up. And the question is, why are we blowing these horns? This one's a massive one, but they make smaller ones as well. Why are we doing it? What's the whole significance behind it? So there's different reasons given. A couple of them is a call for us to repent, wake up. It's a new year. It's time to renew ourselves. We want to be better than we were from last year, taking a small little thing and improving. It's also a remembrance. Remembering what? So when the binding of Isaac took place and Abraham was commanded by God to sacrifice his son Isaac, he literally was about to kill him. And once God saw that he was going to go through with it, he said, I see that you're a fully trustworthy and you believe in me 100%. Don't kill your son. But Abraham was so on fire with wanting to still perform the mitzvah to show God and serve God. So God made a miracle and all of a sudden a ram came in. He was able to take that ram, sacrifice it, and do that. So what we're trying to do is the merit of our forefather, Abraham, that he did this, we're recalling that on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur and say, God, the same way Abraham was willing to go all in for you, we want to do the same thing. That's a reminder when we hear it. Take care. Trying to change gears a little bit, talking about getting a little more personal, but it seems like, this is challenges that you're facing with this, but let's go more on a familial, right? With the family.
Said well.
And Jordana is pretty open about, when you had your first, you and Justin had your first daughter, Ariana.
Our only daughter.
That's true. Then you got some big boys coming next. You got two big boys.
Baby Hulks coming.
Yeah.
Massive.
So I know you talk about that Ariana has autism, and I kind of wanted to talk about that where I don't know what age you guys sort of realizing whatever that she had differences, and just kind of talk about when you first found out about that.
If I could cut in before you give it, because I'm sure you have a lot to talk on that. Something that inspired me, and because you're, as you said, you're open about it. You advocate for it. You speak on it, and it's I remember you posting one point about on Facebook or whatever it was, and just like you were so open about fighting the stigma about and the fact that it, like, to me, it shows so much like self-esteem. It's not being afraid of sharing it.
Yeah.
So we're so curious, and I'm sure the audience wants to hear like that journey, how it started, and
so So Ariana she's going to be 9 in October. So we got Ariana's diagnosis. It was a little weird. Adina also, thank God for Adina. I might cry, but it's not because it's like sad, but this is just what happens. So,
Sure.
When you talk to two men, you're like, you might cry.
This is real. Yeah. I know.
and we are married.
We've never heard a woman cry before.
The ironic thing is, like, I'm not a crier. Like, I'm more on the other side, but like,
this is it. Real people.
It happens.
Real talk,
but I mean, it's like when you like are about to like do a lot, like when you speak in public. Whenever I have to speak in public, like I'm not afraid of speaking in public, but my voice shakes and I freak out. And I just need one person from the audience to say like one thing to me, and then I'm fine.
Exactly.
And I literally start off like, I'm not nervous. This is just a weird thing. Are you guys okay? And everyone's like, yeah, we're fine. I'm like, okay, let's go. I don't know why, but like it happens. So we always joke that Ariana, we have all of our close friends around us. We all have kids not the same age, but 3 months apart. Like we have the Tabrias, our good friends, the Edelmans, all of our daughters are 3 months apart. So we always joked, ironically, that Ariana was like the best behaved baby because she was never crying. She was playing by herself for hours. We say now that if we would have had Gaby or Ezra, thank God, first, we would have noticed like right away that something was up. But because she was our first, it wasn't a red flag that she was playing by herself for hours, that she wouldn't always respond to her name. We kind of just took it as her just being a really well-behaved baby. We noticed that she wasn't responding to her name. And because she was under 2, we spoke to the pediatrician about it. And he had us get her hearing tested to make sure she could hear because she wasn't reacting to certain things. Got her hearing tested. It was fine. My best friend Dana and I'm not going to say that story, but we got into a massive fight. One of our only crazy fights. And at the end of the fight, she basically was like, I think Ariana has autism, because that's what we were. Justin and I were like, we didn't know anything, but something was up. We didn't know it was up. All of our friends, if you're not in it, you can see it, but it's one of those things like you don't say anything, or you don't know. And she was so young, and Dana told me, thank God. And we went to JFS. Justin went to JFS. I was in school. And they gave Justin a diagnosis that she was autistic. But the way it happened wasn't the way it was supposed to happen. So because of that, we were given that little window of denial to still go through, because we were like, oh, well, they didn't do it this way, blah, 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 blah. So maybe they don't know what they're talking about. Fine. We had her in school. And then again, a good friend of mine mentioned to me, even though she wasn't supposed to, because she was a teacher, which I will never understand that rule. I don't even know if it's still a rule that the teachers are not allowed to say certain things to the parents. And when you're a kid at that age, the person that's around them the most are the teachers. So when Ariana would come home at the end of school and she'd be tired and go to sleep, that's not going to set off any flags. So we decided to take Ariana. We took her to the pediatrician. She was still under 2, because you don't get a diagnosis under 2. They'll tell you to wait because you still don't know. Maybe the child's. We took her to one of the head doctors. I believe it's called, you're going to have to look it up, a developmentalist, pediatric. So basically his job is to diagnose these things. And we took her, and I remember he's doing all these tests with her. And he's like, Ariana, like, where's the pen? And she's playing with the blocks. And I'm like, oh, she didn't hear you. And he's like, no, you can't say any of these things. Like, she can hear me. And he's like, Ariana. I'm like, no, you have to like look down at her and say Ariana. And he like looked at me. He's like, I know you have to do that, but you don't have to do that. So can you just let me? And I was like, okay. So I like went in the corner, and Justin was holding my hand, and he like was testing her. And he looked at me. He's like, okay, so she has autism. just like that. And I just started like
imagine.
crying because it was like everything. And Justin, ironically, I don't say ironically in a mean way, but this whole time, like I'm a very logical person. Justin's more emotional. So leading up to this, he was a little bit more in denial, a little bit more like emotional. And I was like, no, it's not because of this, or it is. And then I got very emotional. And this doctor looked at me and he's like, why are you being so hysterical? Like I was like, what do you mean? He's like, what is wrong? He literally was like, what is wrong with you? And I was like, I don't understand. Like, what is wrong with you? Because I'm from the East Coast. And I was like, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, and he's like, and Justin like grabbed my hand because I can get too much. I know that. So like, I looked at Justin and I like said some choice words. And I was like, I don't understand, like, what the hell is going on? Why are you telling me to calm down? Right. He looked at me. He's like, your daughter's not even 2 yet. He's like, I took you guys in because he was good friends with our pediatrician. He's like, now you know, and now you get her into therapy and she will be fine. Like, what are you freaking out about? Everything that she'll be okay. It's going to be a little different, but it'll be fine. And I like looked at him and because I'm logical, I was like, okay, so what do we have to do? And he's like, okay, here we go. And I like stopped crying and I was like, okay, like, what do we do now? He's like, it's a blessing that you found out now because you have parents who literally go in denial till the child is in like, I don't know. And it's like literally the worst thing you can do. Like we put Ariana in therapy when she was 2. She's been in therapy since she's 2. She's about to be 9. Non-stop therapy. She's mainstream in a regular school. Wow. And she's quirky, but we all are. But like, I say it to people. I'm like, oh, just so you know, like Ariana's on the spectrum. And my friends are like, why do you always say it? Like, you wouldn't know. I'm like, well, I tell them because in case something happens, which with her, I'm not sure what it would be, just to give a heads up, like, okay. But I also want to be like, when you hear the word autism, it's a really scary word. And it is a scary word, but it doesn't have to be like life ending. We went through with her speech therapy, physical therapy, ABA therapy, fine motor, like every single thing. Adina watched her at school, I remember, and she was like, okay, so yeah, she's on the spectrum, but this is what you do. And you look to the professionals to tell you what to do. And you fight for your kid. You have to, for us, like she was in the Jewish school. And then her therapist was like, the Jewish schools are not the right choice. You need to put her into, at the time was the public school. And we were like, okay, if somebody wants to judge me that I'm pulling my kid out and putting them in public school, I don't need the person in my life. I'm good.
Of course.
Like, but you have parents that don't do that and they fight for their kids to stay in the Jewish school. But because we took Ariana out for kindergarten and first grade, at the beginning of second grade, when we went to like, I think it was the beginning of second grade, the public school teachers were like, so she doesn't qualify for a shadow, she doesn't need one. So she doesn't qualify for this, she doesn't need one. She has her therapy after school. So I was like, so what is she getting here that they're like, nothing. She doesn't have to be here. She's welcome to. It's a great school. I was like, okay. And we like put her back into Jewish school and she was fine. It was challenging, but like every other kid has their stuff. Like Ariana has her quirks. Like she, and what I've learned is autism literally can mean hundreds and thousands of different things. It's one word that goes across a whole spectrum. So for Ariana, she makes very little eye contact. And it's interesting now because I'll ask her, when she was 2, you couldn't ask, but I'll say to her, like, why don't you look at mommy when I'm talking to you? And she'll be like, I'm just like thinking about so many other things. And like, I'll look at you, mommy. And I'll be like, okay, that makes sense because her brain is literally nonstop. She doesn't sleep. Which in the beginning we were like not okay with, but now she's old enough to realize you don't need to sleep, but mommy and daddy need to sleep. So you need to stay in your room and you're in bed, but if you don't fall asleep, you don't need to fall asleep.
So what does she do on that?
Sometimes she sleeps and her brain just doesn't shut off. Wow. She gets super cranky and we like try to get her into a routine of like do you see why you're being so annoying? Like, I'll literally be like, you're being so annoying now because you're tired. You need to sleep. And she'll be like, ugh, I know. But yeah, I've noticed that parents freak out. And like, I've had parents come to me and be like, so Ariana's on the spectrum. No, they'll say, so Ariana's on the spectrum, and like whisper it. And I'll be like, yeah, she is. What's that? They'd be like, are you okay? I'll be like, yeah. I mean, what? Thank God. Like, the worst thing that can happen is that your kid is showing signs, but not enough to get the diagnosis. Because then the therapies aren't covered and you're in that, you want the diagnosis. And when we go back, I don't know if I should say this, but when we go back and they're like, do you want to get a retest? I'm like, no, we don't need to get it retested. Like, keep
take advantage of all the,
keep it there and it's fine. And
it's amazing that you guys did that. I know, because like you mentioned Adina is my wife, and who's a special educator, and she always tells me she never talks about clients, so I don't know who's what, but in general, she said she's early childhood, and her big thing is, I wish parents would just. She understands the emotion that takes place amongst parents because it's hard. Yeah. But she's like, the difference when you get into early childhood, it is exponential. Yeah. As it goes on, and he's like, and that's what I found, because we were living in New York. Yeah. After we got married, and in New York, the stigma is like, there's no stigma. People will get speech, this therapy, that therapy, millions of therapies, and people are doing it. And even if there's any delay in anything, they're doing it. Yeah. Where when we came to Dallas 9 years ago, it was very hush hush. You know, you don't want to say anything. And have you seen that over the last 8 or is it 9 years since you've been here? Whoa. Have you seen where Dallas is becoming more open and accepting, and people less stigma?
Well, I'll do a shout out to Akiba because my kids are all there, but Ariana is in Akiba now because they started this Ma'alo program, which in my eyes, I don't know if this is the correct term, but in my eyes is a special needs program, not just for autism, but for speech, for OT, PT, for kids who are dyslexic, for this. And they, thank God, got this funding. And they, from what I'm told, I don't know if it's true, but it's the first Jewish private school to have a complete special needs program in their school. And they have staff members with so much experience and literally, and there's all different. And I'll admit it, I was super like, this is impossible. Like, why are they trying to do what's in a public school? Because parents don't want to not send their kids to Jewish school for a couple of years. Just send your kid to public school for a couple of years to be fine. So I was super like, I remember they were talking to me about it. I'd be like, okay, fine. But I was 100% wrong, because it's amazing. And the things that they're doing there is great. And forget if your kid's on the spectrum or not. Even if your kid's having trouble reading, they're having all of these things. And thank God they have the funding. But that program, in my opinion, will put Dallas on the map with special education in the Jewish world, because I've never seen it before. And it's amazing, because it's in the class, it's out of the class. They have all these different tracks that they can do depending on what your kid needs. Every kid needs a different program. If you have like 5 kids in the room with autism, they're all going to be completely different, because it could be something completely different. So
it's amazing to see. It's like, I know we know families who moved out of Dallas because they wanted a Jewish school with,
well, we almost did when we found out about Ariana's autism. Because Texas has really bad with the insurance, and New York has amazing. And Justin's like, close to family, we had to have somebody drive. Her therapies were in the middle of the day. It was impossible so it's like, Justin and I talk about it to go like a little bit deeper. Like, during this time, Justin's a great worker. He's on time, gets his job in, and he randomly was let go from his job. And he could not find another job for like 3 years. He was unemployed for 3 years during this whole time with Ariana, that for 3 years we were figuring out what we're doing. And we were able to figure it all out. I was in school full time. I wasn't going to leave school. I already paid for it, so I wasn't going to leave. But Justin found work. He started working for my family's company, whatever. But he was able to, you literally had to drive her to one therapy from 9 to 10, take her home, snack, take her to another therapy on the other side of town. I'm talking about Plano in downtown. And it was all over the place because as she grew, her needs were different. And also the therapists were different. You can get burned out really easily. So we had to constantly, and like we look back on it now, and it was super weird that Justin couldn't find a job because everybody was hiring and it was all these random things. And like, but we know now, okay, he obviously couldn't get a job because if he did have a job, I would have to drop out. And I wasn't going to do that. We couldn't afford to hire somebody full time to drive her everywhere. It was just like, it wasn't meant to be, but it was the only way we were able to stay in Dallas and to do it.
No, you're in a podcast where we believe it was meant to be. So
Yeah, that's true.
you're safe here by thinking that.
I was saying, like, it was clear that it was a setup program.
Right.
That like this made sense. Okay, this happened. The everything fell into place, and now this is where we are. But I mean, the stigma is.
Well, I would
Is there any
say,
other advice that you would give anyone watching that obviously the early intervention that's key, but is there any other advice you'd want to give to parents out there who are
early
not sure,
intervention is key. Getting over it, it's not easy. You'll never get over it because as your kid grows, you're gonna reach new challenges that are like Ariana's doing so well, and then something will happen and Justin and I will be like, all right, like there it is. Like it doesn't go away, but we'll be like, okay, like when Zoom started and this whole COVID thing happened, like I was freaking out. Ariana's all about routine. And she's also like obsessed with computers. So it was like, this could work really well, or this could really not work. And she was great on Zoom, but she couldn't understand the concept of her teacher can't always hear her and like wanting to, and I'm sure this was with all kids. It's not an autism thing, but she was getting so frustrated that she couldn't be heard and she couldn't ask a question. And like her turn would be missed over because of the computer thing. Right. And she would have these breakdowns and I'd be like, forget it. Like no school today. Like you're coming to the restaurant, we would take her. Like I would tell parents to give themselves a break and realize like it's hard, but you have to get over it to help your kid faster. And then once you have your kid in a program, therapy, whatever, then you can have like a little bit of a mental breakdown about it, but get the kid in first. And that never happens. It's always about the parents first. And like, I've had people in Dallas reach out to me and I'm like, oh, how old's your kid? And they're like 12. And I'm like, okay. And I'm not a professional, but I'm just like, and I'll always be like, how long did you know? Well, we always had an idea. And I'm like, I won't say it, but I'll be like, well, then what happened? Like it wasn't getting easier. So like, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so one thing when I hear you, and that's what I love about this podcast, the fact that, we're talking to you and you're sharing your story, is that from someone who, and everyone has their own, as they say in Yiddish, pekel. Everyone has their own little package that Hashem gave them and talks to them about like, you may have this challenge, I may have that challenge, et cetera, et cetera. But when I look at it, it's almost like I'm envious of you, the fact that Hashem, God chose you and Justin to have Ariana.
Yeah, we know.
Which means you guys, God said, are capable of doing it. She wasn't given to someone else. I know a lot of parents, they talk to us and they say, we're doing this wrong, we're doing that wrong, and it's the same thing. And maybe this was like a mistake almost. Like why do God doesn't make mistakes? If God gave you this child, is because you're the best parent for this child. Good things, bad things, but you are the best parent, no one else. Because if it would be someone else, then he would have given that child to someone else. So that's so to be able to say that you guys are special people, the fact that Hashem, God chose you to be able to raise a daughter with these particular challenges, and everyone out there, everyone has their own, child with anxiety or a child with this or that. Everyone, everyone has their own challenges, but to be able to, I guess, for listeners and to realize that it's not. You have your own world and your own challenges, but other people are dealing with things too, and you can overcome and focus on the fact that you can't overcome it.
Yeah, you can overcome anything. You just have to get over it first.
Recognize it.
You have to, you have to approach it like it's a challenge. You can't. I mean, you're human, so you take the days to break down. You take the days to and then you get up and you go, because what are you gonna do? Just complain all day. I'm not going to do anything. Nothing's going to change that way. It's interesting that you said that because like when you're in the secular world, that concept, not to me at all, because I understand that, but because I'm a part of some autism community groups, which I'm not a fan of because they're like obsessed with it. I look at it like it's there. It's a diagnosis. Like I also have ADHD, I'm dyslexic, blah, blah, blah. But I don't have to like put it on my shirt and be like, hi, I'm dyslexic. How are you? But they look at that concept of like, no, God didn't give me this child because I'm stronger. I can deal with it. It's just as strong. It's just as hard for me to deal with it as it would be for you to deal with it. Like I just have no choice. And when I see them posting these things, I'm like, that's a really hard way to look at it. Like, no, I agree with you. Like you were given this challenge for a reason and you rise above or you let it bury you. But when you take a step back and you look at it, like it could always be worse. So I don't know. It's a little, I always,
yeah, we say there's no such thing as a happenstance. Like, it just a coincidence. That's the word. Yeah. We don't believe in coincidences.
Like I quote my father, he's fond of saying in Hebrew, coincidence is mikra, mem kuf,
okay,
resh hey. If you rearrange the letters, you get resh kuf mem hey, which is rak Hashem, only from God.
Oh wow, that's good.
There's no such thing as coincidence.
No,
look at that, dropping knowledge bombs at the end of the podcast.
I'm gonna drop the mic because they're super expensive.
But okay,
no.
but and I don't want to take too much of your time.
No,
I really appreciate it. I don't have to go
coming
back
straight from work. Yeah,
it's
only been a 14-hour day, which is a good thing now. Yeah. It's when the days are slow and nothing's happening that 100%. You're freaking out.
No, you feel like your energy, purpose, and all that. But
this is good. You want to get this information out because you want the stigma to go away. And anybody can reach out to me. I'm not a professional. I'll probably send them to Adina, but. But
you could reach out to Jordana, except you just have to make a reservation at the restaurant.
Yeah. You cannot talk to me about this during the restaurant.
No, you have to. That's your rite of passage. You have to first eat at my restaurant, then you can call me afterwards.
The truth is, I've had parents come into the restaurant and be like, "Can we talk to you about this?" I would be like,
"No, not at work.
Right now." Like, I really want to talk to you about it, but like right now, I can't. But no.
But something I grew up. Yeah, at the Shabbat table, when my parents, my father specifically, really wanted to make it interesting. He'd always ask us every Shabbat a question on the portion, but every once in a while he would ask us, "What's our favorite Jewish holiday or our favorite mitzvah?" So I want to ask you.
You thought you were getting a question on the parsha. You were like, "Uh-oh."
No, I'm not going to ask you the portion. What's your favorite? Let's say
you
favorite
don't even
Jewish
know why
holiday?
That's so funny. I hate being asked like math questions or spelling questions or like Torah questions.
Most people, I could tell you got a little nervous right when you started.
At my wedding, Justin's grandfather, may he rest in peace, was the rabbi who what's the word?
Officiated?
Yeah, he and the Rabbi Marcus, yeah. And he was giving, you give a big speech before, and he's giving this speech and he looks right at me and he's like, "And who is Moshe Rabbeinu's wife?" And looks at me. And you see on my wedding video me like sweat and like I'm wet and I'm just like, oh my God. And he's like,
Mrs. Moshe Rabbeinu.
He's like, "That's right." And he continues his speech. And then you see me look at Justin and be like, "I'm going to kill your family."
Oh, God.
But like, and they all laughed at me afterwards, but like, literally now they all do it as a joke. Like they're like, "Yeah, and Jordana." I'm like, "No, I'm not answering anything."
So this is a lightweight one.
But that's why you saw my face.
Yeah,
I was like,
no. Yeah. I got nervous. I was like,
Justin's like, "Are they giving you questions before?" I was like, "No, you want it to be authentic. You want it to be real." He's like, "What if they ask you like a math question or a spelling question or like a Torah question?" I'm like, "I'll just say I don't know and I won't answer." Like, I'm fine.
So what's your favorite Jewish holiday?
I think Pesach.
Okay. Was that when the restaurants closed?
Yes. No, but I hate to sound cheesy, but like Pesach for me, food wise, is super challenging. But I have to it's also like my birthday, which is not why I like it. But I've always liked Pesach. I like that it's like a week off. Everybody's together. We always went to New York. All the other holidays, I mean, they're fun. But I really like the food on Pesach, which is so weird.
Because it's all you like to eat. I mean, you're dipping, you're having the celery and the salt water and
I don't know.
You
But
gotta
like,
have all the
delicious.
different stuff.
all the Seder food, and my family's nuts with food, and we like meat and potatoes, and my dad just like brings a cow because he used to be a butcher, so it's just like nonstop.
What's your
beef.
favorite mitzvah? Put you on the spot a little.
My favorite mitzvah? I don't.
She has so many. She doesn't know. Like it's like 15 of them.
Okay,
top
this
of your
is
head.
gonna sound like because
That's
it's
It's off the cuff. That's how it, yeah.
my favorite mitzvah is. This is gonna sound horrible, but like stopping people from speaking lashon hara.
Gossip.
Like, gossiping,
Beautiful.
like at the restaurant in that industry when you're hanging around, people like it's a thing, like coffee
Sure.
shop talk and everything like that. And I know it's a challenge for me. Like I don't get involved. I'll just be like, okay. Like in the beginning, I'd be like, yeah, okay, and I'll like quickly like walk away. Or when they complain about other people or other establishments, whatever.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jordana.
It's just
Again.
so fun.
Yeah, we're
Great.
trying to make it fun. Well,
Who's gonna be next?
I don't know. We're gonna see. We'll put someone on the spot.
Oh my god.
We'll just
Stay
sit them down.
tuned
They
for
come,
that.
just come talk, and all of a sudden we'll throw a mic at them.
Oh my god.
You're being
You have
interviewed.
to like. I'm curious who you're gonna do next.
We have a nice list coming up. But yeah.
All right. Well, everyone, if anyone who's watching or listening, if you like this podcast, please be sure to like it, subscribe to it,
Give reviews.
share it with friends, give reviews, and also give us a shout out if there's any specific topics or someone you know that you'd like to be interviewed as well, and we can maybe throw them
Follow
into the
Jet
lineup.
on Instagram.
Follow us on Instagram,
Follow them on Facebook.
on Facebook.
My
Okay.
God, get your social media out there.
No,
We're
right?
working,
Get
we're
it.
working on it. We're working on it.
During you have to be like hashtag. What are you calling this?
The hub. Oh, just
Hanging-
hanging at the hub.
Hashtag hanging it with the
Real talk, real people, real rabbis.
Dun, dun, dun.
Da-da-da.
Thank you
Take
so
care.
much.
And now, a Jewish perspective.
When it comes to raising our children, we put so much focus on the outcome. What's going to be with our children? But really, we have to focus on the input. Do we tell our children how great they are? Do we believe in our children? Do they feel it? It's so interesting. In the book of Esther, it says that Mordecai, who was Esther's cousin, raised Esther. Esther didn't have any parents, and Mordecai took upon himself to raise his young cousin. And it's very interesting in the verse. It says, Vayihi Omenes Hadassah. Hadassah was Esther. It's another word for Esther, another name for Esther. But it means that Mordecai raised Esther. And our rabbis tell us another word for omen, raised, is belief. Mordecai believed in Esther. And our commentaries continue explaining that he would say to Esther, I believe in you, Esther, I believe in you. And that gave her the confidence that one day she's going to save the Jewish people. Can you imagine if we would tell our children, I believe in you, constantly, I believe in you? How much confidence would it give them? How good would that make them feel? And that's what we learn from the book of Esther. Not only to love our children, but we have to believe in our children. And when we believe in our children, the sky's the limit for them.
Subscribe to Hanging at the Hub on your favorite podcast platform. Follow us at jet.jewisheducationtexas on Instagram and at Jewish Education Texas on Facebook. Or watch the show at jetexas.org.